Welcome back to Roster the People, Summertime Edition. 32 teams in 32 days. Neil Smith, Jason Draven, Mason Cameron. We got the Colorado crew here, plus Jason. He's in a neighboring state. We're gonna count it. It doesn't really count that way, but we're gonna count it. It's close enough.
We're touching.
Yeah. Don't set me up like that. This is not. Don't make me NSFW tag this show before we've even started. You can't get into that with me. But I had to. I immediately had a Michael Scott in my head, and I'm like, nope, stop. Today we are going to do a professional show that is highly professional about the Philadelphia Eagles, and that is what we are actually going to do. As we know, this is your primer for the 2024 fantasy football season. This is based on 12-team redraft. That's right. You've heard this 28 times, Jason. Get ready for a few more.
Oh no, I'll sing the fight song.
Flight. Okay. Everything is based on 12-team redraft. You'll hear us reference a lot of rankings and ADPs. Those come courtesy of Fantasy Pros. We do our own rankings, but obviously they're slushed into the Fantasy Pros ECR. If we're wildly different on any individual ranking, we will talk about it. Like when Jason brought up that he's got Devin Singletary in the top 12 at running back, and then the whole show just ground to a screeching halt. So we'll see if that happens here again. We'll see if we have to do something like that again. Obviously, this is based on 12-team PPR, as I mentioned, 16-round draft. So what you'll actually see here is if we have to reference other formats, we will do so along the way. Shout out to Fantasy Pros. Thank you for everything. Thank you for letting us be an affiliate. We love working with you every year. And today is the 16th of August. So if anything we say sounds a little dated, that would be why. We will actually be posting. We're going to pre-record the wrap-up show. It's going to go up early morning on the 31st of August so that everybody gets a chance to watch it before their draft. We'll be updating any takes. We're also going to talk about a little change that was made to Sleeper that got announced just this week. It's made Jason very happy for selfish personal reasons. It's also
Very
threatening
sad.
to put Jason out of business. It's a double-edged sword. That it's going to be interesting to see how that actually works. So yeah, he's happy about it today.
No, you think that people are going to be in Jason's ear asking him who his first, second, and third slot players are for that?
You did the joke I did a couple days ago where I was like, no, Jason, it just changes the show. Just instead of doing the show the way we were, what it turns into is, well, if you played on Sleeper, I'd start him, but I'd put him in the auto sub. You played on Sleeper? It's literally that is how that is going to proceed.
Longest shows ever.
No, what we're going to do is we're going to start. I'm going to be in the comments talking to these people like I usually am when we're doing those shows. And I'm going to be like, what app are you playing on? Start posting it in the question. Like, if you have auto subs turned on, we want to know because it will change our advice. Because that's what it is. Sleeper has announced the new auto sub feature that we will be discussing on the wrap-up show because it is too long for the purposes of this conversation today. So we will go through it. But that's kind of it. There's all your lovely PSAs. That's what we're here to do. We're going to break down the Eagles. I got to tell you, normally this is where we lead off with our conversation around projection inflation and the idea that certain players are being overvalued or there's too many players being drafted. I've actually been really surprised at the restraint. Not just with the expert community and with the public. I've been very surprised with the restraint because the Eagles are a good team. They're projected to be a playoff team, and we've seen projection creep with this team before. But this year, no. This year you got your big five, and then we're gonna go through it. So, leading off the big five, we're gonna start at quarterback like we like to do. It's Jalen Hurts. It's very interesting. Cat engagement. Cat engagement's back. There it is. Yep, there she is. Hello. Yeah. See, the views are going up. Yeah. The live views are going up. That's what it is. So we have.
I wonder if Jalen Hurts has a cat.
He might. You never know. Well, we can ask him. Here's what it is though. Jalen Hurts this year is opening as the QB2 in the ECR, which translates to 22 overalls. That'd be a late second round pick. His ADP is 32. So if you want him and you're playing with regular people, you're looking at third rounder for Jalen Hurts. It's an interesting situation. Mason, I know you have some thoughts on Jalen Hurts, so I'm going to go to you here first.
I mean, so obviously the big thing with Jalen Hurts has always been you have explosive rushing ability, and he is, their number one option when they really get close to the goal line. They love their little sneak that they've used for years. it's their calling card, and they love to run the read option. My question has been, do we see that rushing value maybe decrease a little bit this year? Now, I'm not incredibly worried about him still being a productive player because, like you alluded to, they're going to be incredibly productive on offense. He's still going to run the ball, but it's just something that we've kind of seen be a trend for him since that output kind of peaked in 2022. Last year, he was a little bit down in terms of number of touches that he had rushing the ball and just overall production. He still had, I think, what was it, 12 touchdowns, something like that, maybe 15. I can't even remember.
15 rushing touchdowns.
15 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. And an insane number. And that's down from what I think it was 18 the year before or something like that. So it's one of those things that it's like, that's still an insane number. And he still might put up a huge number that draws back this value. But I think to project him that highly with 15 plus rushing touchdowns is a bit rich for that, especially considering who they've added to the backfield, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It's just a question of if that trend is going to continue for sure.
It's definitely something to note. Jason, are you scared? Are you taking note of this, or where are you?
So I have him as my QB5, but I also cut his rushing touchdowns in half. And he's still QB5.
Right.
So if I'm being as conservative as I can be, is it a little rich? Yeah, but that's kind of what if you're going to buy a quarterback up at this point, I mean, this is
what it costs.
Yeah, this is what it is.
This is what it costs. Like, I know people don't like it. I certainly don't like it.
This is what 8 plus rushing touchdowns at the quarterback position costs.
Yeah, this is what it costs. Like, this is what you're going to have to pay. So as a general rule, I don't like drafting quarterback this high. However, I think the concerns are well warranted. It's well explained. And, they added a proper running back for the first time in a long time. So you've got that concern, and then you've just got the idea that he's a little bit older.
Doesn't have
Are they going to be that much? They need him healthy if they're going to be the playoff team that they're projected to be, because as we're going to get into here literally momentarily, there's no backup to this plan.
Well,
so it's
you don't like Kenny Pickett?
I don't. Never have.
The Eagles don't like Kenny
Never
Pickett.
have.
What are you talking about?
I didn't like Kenny Pickett when he came into the league. I didn't like Kenny Pickett in college. So you're asking the wrong guy. I'm not Mike Manning. I don't live in Pittsburgh. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
So no,
It's a short migration period for
it.
He literally didn't have to go very far at all.
He probably didn't even sell his house. Why would you? Like, what would be the point of selling the house? Just get an apartment. Get an Airbnb, for God's sake. Just expense it. Like, what are you like? You don't even need to do anything.
Probably not going to be there long enough to.
Yeah, there's no point in moving.
An issue anyway.
Yeah, there ain't no point in moving. We'll get into that here in just 1 second. So, Hurts, this is what it costs. I still stick to my general strategy of not wanting to take a quarterback this high. If you want that and you want one of these guys that's in the top 3, he's projected this way for a reason. You kind of know what you're getting. If it wasn't for the change in running back, I really don't think we would be concerned at all.
No. But
that's the main thing.
Top 12 QB.
Right. But this is what it's going to cost. If you want to do it, I think it's fine. I think you're going to.
We'll get into it here in a second when we talk about the backfield, but I think you encounter an interesting situation that not a lot of teams in fantasy get to do, which we'll break into here in a second.
Yeah, there is definitely that.
I don't want to leak it too
much. No, I know where you're going. So
here's
what we'll do. We'll finish quarterback. Jalen Hurts, good player. It's what it's going to cost. And I don't think any of us are going to sit here and be like, no, that's unreasonable. It's just a question of whether or not that's something you want to do. And if that's what you want, then that's a good vehicle for it. But you have to make this decision yourself. It's not a decision I would make. I'd be looking at running backs and wide receivers. Not this. But if this is what you want and this is how you believe in building your roster, go ahead. So I'm not going to call you crazy.
The only year he wasn't a QB 10, top 10 QB was his rookie year.
Right. And
which was during
COVID. And he was not nearly the player he is now.
Correct.
He came into the league very raw.
Yeah.
So the issue you have now is that backing him up is Kenny Pickett. We've already touched on this a little bit. I'm not a fan of Kenny Pickett. I'll tell you who's really not a fan of Kenny Pickett is Mason. Go ahead, Mason.
I mean, I just don't think Kenny Pickett makes this roster. I don't see any I just don't
Eagles
see
keep
any.
telling you every day that he's going to be the backup on this team.
And exactly, and they keep saying that, and no matter, and every time Sirianni says it, I believe it less. And it's literally just I get it to a degree. You're in camp, you're evaluating your roster. This is supposed to be the situation where there's no pressure on them, and they have to figure out who can play and who can't. And if you're gonna be a coach and you're gonna get a validated evaluation of your guy, you can't have him already being gun shy because he's getting criticized in camp. Now, that might be a question that if he's getting criticized in camp and he can't take that, and he's struggling when he gets on the field,
let me tell you something about the city of Philadelphia real quick.
Yeah, maybe.
Let me tell you something about how the city of brotherly love works.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a good time.
Exactly. Especially when you have on the other side where you have Tanner McKee, who I'm not the biggest Tanner McKee guy. I know a handful of people who are really high on him coming out of the pre-draft process when he came out. And what I see is that he played really well in their game. We're actually coming out of they played last night. So for anybody, this is recorded on the 16th.
Oh, Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who played last night? Patriots and Eagles. Sorry.
The Eagles played last night. Right. And McKee had a good game. He had over 89% adjusted completion percentage, and he threw the ball well. So tell me, and not that this even matters. This is literally just me venting about weird situations and rosters in the back. This is like camp news that just doesn't make any sense.
It is. That's why I don't want to spend too much more time on it. But
yes, it's just a weird situation. Tanner McKee's going to end up being the backup this year. Kenny Pickett's probably not going to be on this roster, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I wouldn't really worry about it too much. The only reason it's worth mentioning from where I'm sitting is if it is Kenny Pickett for whatever reason, I do have concerns about him cratering out your skill position players. We usually are like, no, he's fine. He can prop up your skill position players. Not Kenny Pickett. Not Kenny Pickett. Go ask the George Pickens people about it.
Yeah.
Go ask Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
He couldn't outplay Mason Rudolph. Yo, what? No, that can't be. No. That's bad. That tells me that he's struggling to pass what I call the Tyler Palko competency test.
Everybody listening at home, tell me what team Mason Rudolph plays on right now.
Yeah.
You have 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Our point exactly.
Yeah, there you go. So, and I wouldn't be surprised, Mason, when you talk about Tanner McKee, that the average person listening to this is like, what?
That's true too.
I don't know what that is. Like, yeah. So it's like, I get it. Like, it's one of those type of deals. So there's your quarterback.
He's also the exact opposite type of player, passer, anything as the starter.
Right,
so
right. It's a huge shift.
It's a huge shift. Yeah.
So the point is, it's hurts or bust. It's hurts or bust, and that becomes relevant because when we start talking about, are they going to let him run? Are they going to let him do some of this stuff? Because I got to tell you, the Eagles aren't stupid. They know. And this is why I was talking about there's a big 5 for fantasy drafts. So that's the situation that we're walking into here. Jason, do you have something to share with the class? What you're doing that thing where you're like, what are you doing?
Well, my mind is not here clearly.
Are you trying to figure out who Mason Rudolph plays for without Googling it? No. Because if that's what's happening, I'm going to kick you.
No, you said Palco, and all I can think of is a movie, and I can't think of his first name now. It's been driving me nuts.
Shane Falco from the Replacements.
Yeah, from the Replacements.
Yes.
Just Keanu, who's just Keanu Reeves.
When his offensive linemen come out and start firing off rounds into his car.
Yeah, no, here. Okay, so
sorry, we're off the rails.
We're so far off the rails. Tyler Palco played for the Steelers.
Yeah.
He also went to Pitt. Same as Kenny Pickett. Tyler Palco was so bad that I came up with something called the Tyler Palco competency test. In order to pass the Tyler Palco competency test, you have to actually be able to go out on the field, snap the football competently, just be able to snap the football, call a play, get out of the huddle, and Tyler Palco was so bad he couldn't do that. And this is a conversation that I used to have with Mike Manning because Mike's like, why did they both go to Pitt? And I'm like, I don't know, Mike. I don't know. But it's funny because most people don't know who Tyler Palco is, but Mike did. And I cut him to his soul when we were talking about Kenny Pickett a couple of years ago. But I still bring up the Tyler Palco competency test because you have to be able to snap the ball. And Kenny Pickett, he's right there. he can kind of do it, but then the game starts and it's like, ah, and it's like, oh God, no, I don't like what I'm seeing. You scare me. Like, you can't even execute the drop back. Why are you off plane? Why are you terrified? You look like you're just scared. And it's like, I don't like this. You're not filling me with confidence. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about quarterbacks of yesteryear. We've referenced it a few times. The Eagles went out, and DeAndre Swift is no longer with this team. That was a fun experiment. He got a contract with the Bears that's big enough to kind of matter. But the Eagles had their opportunity to go get Saquon Barkley, and they pounced on it, and I don't blame you. So Saquads himself, is going to be starting for this team. Watching the Hard Knocks on this was hilarious. Watching them watch it, the car crash happen in the Giants front office in real time, watching them work it out was television gold. Saquon Barkley, because it's Saquon, it opens as the RB6. That would translate to 14 overall. His ADP is 11. I'm really not going to spend a lot of time on this. Saquon Barkley, good at football. Saquon Barkley on good team. Saquon Barkley, like, Mason, what do you think about? Let's do this quickly. What do you think about Saquon Barkley, Mason?
I mean, obviously Saquon just brings pure 3-down potential to an offense that loves to run in screen game. End of story.
That's it.
Like, we don't need to, like, you could talk till we're blue in the face about potential injury concerns and things like that. I think that this is the guy that is the value late first, early second, in my opinion. And it's because of a lot of what we've talked about with how drafts are falling, where 5, 6 wide receivers are coming off the board very quickly after the first running back. And, you know, after 8 picks, you could still potentially be getting running back 2, 3, 4, whatever. I think that this guy carries a lot more potential than even some of those other guys that are in that tier above him. The who's in the tier above him? Why am I
Bijan
and
CMC is one of one.
Hall's the other one. Hall is
Oh.
the other one that I was thinking of. Is while I like both of those backs, I think I would saddle myself to Barkley's potential on this roster that has proven it knows how to run, has proven it loves to run, and is
Has a
going
good
to be
O-line.
an effective O-line. And I just, and this is something that I alluded to just a minute ago when we were talking about Hurts, but this might be one of those rare running back quarterback stacks that you could go out and get where, you know, it's not something that's quite as common. Everybody thinks, oh, you get the running back and the quarterback because it's a direct stack. This is more of an indirect stack where you're taking an offense that is going to be productive, is going to run the ball a lot. These are the two guys that are going to run the ball a lot. Let's maximize our output on that. And that could be a value to you potentially, which could pay out with your, you know, like we just talked about, Jalen Hurts. It is an expensive ask, but that's what it costs to get a quarterback that doubles as, from a fantasy sense, as a running back.
Yep.
So when you can essentially attack that, especially when we continue to talk about, hey, we're kind of in this weird range of that mid-range running back in that 3 to 4 round range. Well, maybe your running back plays the quarterback position. And I hate saying that because he's so much better than just a running back, but he runs the ball so efficiently that from a fantasy standpoint, that's where it sits. And then, you know, we'll talk even more. He has a high priced touted receiver there that you could also potentially stack with. It's just one of these things that this might be one of these offenses to stack, and Saquon Barkley might be one of those key pieces for you late first, early second.
Yeah, and on that same point, we talked about Swift. Last year, he was RB23 and RB24 in points per game.
Right.
I don't know how you compare Swift and Barkley, but I think one might be a little better than the other.
Yeah, a bit.
Just a smidge.
A bit. A bit.
So if the worst is what you're getting is RB24, that's quite a drop. But the dude had 229 carries last year.
Yeah.
If you give Barkley 229 carries,
the one thing that you might worry about slightly as it relates to this is, does Hurts lose out on some of the rushing touchdowns deliberately?
Covered that.
Yes.
I know, but it's just something to bring up again and again and again. That's the concern, is that does Hurts, is it less tush push? We need to preserve him. Let Saquon do that. Hurts, I need you playing quarterback for me if we're going to go back to the playoffs and try and win another Super Bowl.
Yes.
And I can't have you getting whacked in the head at the goal line So Saquon, you're doing it. But it's like, even if that happened, to Mason's point, what if they just spread it out and then he's throwing dump offs to Saquon the whole time, and then you get those damn points anyway? So it's like it's a real tough. It's a tough one. I can see how we've wound up in this place.
We've seen these super creative goal line sets over the last like 3-4 years.
Yeah,
that highlight running back just leaks out, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that, where you key a pretty important player on your team. Maybe it's AJ Brown, maybe it's Hurts himself, but they're going to show them a look, and then they're going to leak Barkley out of the backfield, and he's just going to catch little balls out, and he's going to make one dude miss at the 3-yard line, and you're never going to have a chance a lot of the times. It's just going to open up their offense. I think they're going to be very, very efficient scoring near the goal line when you have a huge big body contested target like AJ Brown. You're going to have an efficient vision cutting, elusive, strong back like Saquon. And then you have just the unstoppable Jalen Hurts tush push sneak. Like, I don't know. I think they're going to be very, very hard to beat in short yardage again. And they just continue to get very, very hard to beat in short yardage.
And then just to round it out, you have Kenny Gainwell back, still with the team. Everybody loves Kenny G. And then you have Will Shipley behind that. So I'm just going to do this way, Mason, because we need to move quicker. So Gainwell is your running back. If something was to happen to Saquon, Gainwell would be your running back. Shipley would be your pass catching back. They would split the job. None of these guys are handcuffs. There's no handcuff on this team. Don't feel obligated to handcuff to Saquon. And in reality, both Gainwell and Shipley, I know there's been a lot of talk about Shipley through camp. None of those guys have ADPs. They are not draftable. They are good football players for the Eagles. They are not fantasy assets for you. That's why I've been saying there's a big five. There's a big five here. And all of them are valuable in the big five. But that's why I was saying it takes some restraint to not be drafting Kenny Gainwell and Will Shipley, because you're like, well, they play on good teams. That is specious reasoning. I would explain what specious means. Google it. It means giving the appearance of truth, but it's not true. There you go. That's the short version. I'd like to buy your rock for people who understand The Simpsons. So there you go. That's what it is. So the big five, you're looking at Hurts, Saquon. Ignore Gainwell, ignore Shipley for fantasy purposes. Just enjoy watching them on Sundays because they are fun to watch and they are talented in their own right, but they are not fantasy commodities for you. And they will cannibalize each other. Wide receiver hasn't changed much. I like this team because besides the Saquon thing, it's like, if it ain't broke, why are we fixing stuff that ain't broke? So it's AJ Brown yet again, as people, longtime fans of this show know, I love AJ Brown and have since he came into the league. He's what I'm looking for as my wide receiver one. He's a big man that can hustle, and he can high point a football, and he's a good route runner, and he's good. He's good, and he's rounded into the player over the years that I thought he could become. So it's been fun to watch. And as such, he opens as the wide receiver 6 in the ECR. He's going at 9 overall. So yet another first-round pick in fantasy for the Eagles. Guess what? His ADP is 9. No one has anything to say. No one has anything negative to say about Brown right now. Mason, what do you think about 9? We got a lot of first-round picks and second-round picks happening here.
Take him before some of these guys that you have questions about, like the JJs and the Marvin Harrisons that are a little bit higher up there. Take him before those guys. Take him higher than 9. Go ahead. You're going to be fine. Trust me. You have the guy that the biggest thing is that he's not just Neil's favorite receiver.
Yeah.
He's Jalen Hurts' favorite
matters
receiver.
Matters a lot more.
So you see,
matters significantly more.
I have a bunch of numbers. I have a bunch of numbers written down here about how much he's targeted in the red zone and late downs and on scramble routes, and I could drone on about that, or you could just
let's just give a nice round number. He's basically targeted on like 33% of anything you want. It's like a third of the offense goes through AJ Brown. So
yes. Exactly.
Nice round number. Really?
Also, new offensive coordinator might help him a little bit.
Could.
Maybe.
Could. Considering how annoying it was last year. Could. Could. And then Devonta Smith, still playing on his rookie deal. People like Devonta Smith, and I get why, because he consistently shows you flashes. That's different from being consistent in its own right. But he consistently shows you why people have been high on him for a long time. I wish he was a little more consistent, full stop, but that's kind of priced in here. So Devonta Smith opens as the wide receiver 22, translates to 37 overall. His ADP is 47. I get why that's happening. There have been some moments where Devonta Smith has kind of been kind of frustrating. So I get why certain people, not everybody, but certain people that have rostered him before are like, kind of don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. However, before we get into it, I just want to point this out. He has had an amazing camp. He looks healthy and he looks fast. And it's just like, well, okay. The question will be, can he stay healthy? Mason, what do you like about Devonta Smith?
Well, I mean, I think you hit on it too. One of his inconsistency, and it's because he is born and bred to catch the deep ball. He is one of the big play receivers in the league right now. Top 20 in receptions over 15 yards. I think he had 27 of them. He's just a big time play receiver. So maybe he fits better for your team in best ball potentially. But this is kind of where that pricing, I think, puts out a really good. I think he's a good value. I think he is a good value.
4th round pick.
I just definitely, if I'm
late 4th round pick, actually. Late 4th rounder.
Right. So I think
he'd be your wide receiver 2.
Yeah. You have to look at kind of who your guy is in the area. Jason's shaking his head. He might have a different opinion on it. I think it is a little bit inconsistent with the big playability, but what you're hoping is that he continues to take steps to being, the more well-rounded receiver that you hope to see. But I think that the team's not concerned about that. They want AJ Brown to be that guy, their contested ball.
They want AJ Brown to be the guy that can do it all. And they want Devonta Smith to be the big play field stretch. Like, we're going to go hit me a home run.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. So you got to be prepared for that. If you don't have the stomach for that kind of thing, I completely understand. But I will co-sign what you said, Mason. There is a lot of upside. But you got to be aware of the floor being
the roller coaster. Yeah.
What do you think, Jason? Where are you at with Devonta Smith?
It's just so risky. And at that point, I mean, there's so many players that are right around him that I'd much rather have.
T. Higgins? Where T. Higgins? Little
T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers, people who are the clear ones on their team. I mean, even I guess kind of George Pickens, if they decide who the quarterback is.
I don't know.
That's more risky, but again, clear number 1 on his team.
Well, we're going to talk about Pickens tomorrow, and I can tell you right now, you don't have to worry about that because it's not actually that close.
Which is later.
Well, that by whose ranking? It's not yours.
I'm just talking about ADP,
Okay.
Cooper Kupp's right in that area.
That would be an interesting one. That would be like the antithesis of a Devonta Smith. Like, that would be just going the other way entirely. That would be an interesting comp to look at the end of the year. But either way, I don't think anybody's going to sit there and be like, don't draft Devonta Smith. No, he's part of the Big Five for a reason. So, because the Big Five is Hurts, Saquon, Brown, Smith. And then no one else at wide receiver is draftable. Paris Campbell, no. Johnny Wilson, no. Aiyana Smith, no. Like, nothing. This team is kind of crystallized into like, this is who we have. This is who we're going to feature. And we got some backup players, but they're more like good players for us to have as opposed to like fantasy assets. So it's like, I'm not really worried about that. And Johnny Wilson is still in the concussion protocol anyway. So like, I'm not worried about any of these guys, and I don't think you should be either. The final thing to discuss is tight end. Everybody's favorite topic. Well, Jason's favorite topic. So it's Dallas Goedert. We've done it. We've got to the point where it's pretty much just Dallas Goedert at this point. We'll see. There's a little bit of weirdness happening with the tight end for this team in general, as there often is. But Dallas Goedert opens as the tight end 11. That would be 103 overall. He's going at 107. I think that's about right. There's going to be weeks where he pays you off. There's going to be weeks where he completely disappears because you're never going to get all of these guys, all 4 of them, not counting Hurts. You're not going to get all 4 of the Big Five to hit simultaneously. Someone's going to lose kind of every week here. It's just a question of who it is.
Usually it's going to be Goddard, though. I mean, that's
Being
just
the
what it
odd-
comes down to.
Goddard
We're off
being the
the
odd
bat.
man out.
Yeah, I mean, because you have
I think it's going to rotate between Goddard and Smith mostly, but
but again,
depending on the matchups.
also Goddard couldn't stay healthy last year.
Well, that's been an issue in the past.
Correct. So with that, I mean, so he missed 3 games and had 1, 2, 3 games where he was double digits in fantasy.
I'm not interested in Goddard because it's too expensive. for
Yeah,
what
and,
want.
I mean, just because of that price.
You're
point.
asking the wrong guy, Jason. I'm not the right guy for this conversation. I'll tell you. I'll let someone else take Goddard, and I'll wait.
So just to play into kind of like how Philly will use their thing, one of the reasons why there's not 3 receivers is because they run the most 2 tight end and blah blah blah. They run the most 2 tight end sets in the NFL last season by quite a bit. So what I would sit there and say is that, yeah, you do return some value on Dallas Goedert. The rest of we're not even going to talk about whatever the rest of their tight end room is. Because
I'll run through it. It's CJ
very
Uzama.
strange.
It's Albert O from Denver, which is hysterical.
And then Grant Calcaterra is the 2 on that. So when they come into 2 tight end sets, it's going to be Grant Calcaterra and Dallas Goedert. And they're not throwing Grant Calcaterra the ball. So,
Well,
I mean,
I have him with 8 receptions. Okay.
Yeah, that's generous. Is he like your is he like your like wife's like related to her, like something, like, is that how that works? Like,
Last year he caught 4 for 39 yards. All
okay,
4 of his
so
targets, he
double,
got all of them.
doubling it to 8. Oh my God,
it's a breakout season.
blow all your fab budget.
Breakout season. Yeah, so just all in all, it's going to be a strange situation for them at tight end in general. The Dallas Goedert injury thing, those other names that we mentioned are kind of to replace that, but he will get usage to a degree. But like we've said a lot of the times, when you're at this point with tight end, it is kind of a shot in the bucket. And could you take Goddard because he's a talented tight end? Sure. I don't think the price is overly high, but
it's
just
not.
don't expect him to be some stalwart tight end that's going to end up returning more value than what you drafted him at.
Right, exactly. So with that, we've covered it. Like I said, it's a weird show because there's no like weird depth flyers that we normally spend a little bit of time on. It's like 5 guys, nothing. And all the 5 guys are expensive, but they're all worth it in their own way. So it's a weird thing. There's certain things I'm a little more scared of than others, as we kind of detailed. But any final thoughts on the Eagles, guys?
Fly, Eagles, fly.
There you go. Fly, Eagles, fly. And with that, tomorrow we're gonna go through the Pittsburgh Steelers, the other team. Let me tell you, there's 2 teams in Pennsylvania. We did the good one. Now we're gonna do the other one. So tune in for that tomorrow.
Kenny Pickett.
Hey. It is what it is, man. But yeah, tune in tomorrow for the Steelers. And until then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz. And you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!